他再厉害，也是个大虚器皿。
今时不同往日了，让教祖独自栽培出来的，跟那些宗派没有区别。杀！杀猪刀被撑死。
器皿又如何？
行动，人！你倒行逆施，我要替你。
狮子，是要叫你从巷尾输到巷头。启明，末战已出，这到底如何是天王宫一刀头斩落皇帝的头颅？谁敢偷我的东西？
一是变教为国，圣教要立国，则需远离也。在60堂只。
Qinmu felt that he had mastered enough of the unification technique and decided to leave the mountain. With Hulinger in his embrace and a backpack filled with spare pills, he activated the teleportation technique. In an instant, his figure shot out, leaving behind the Holy Arrival Mountain, then vanished into the sky thanks to the enchanted garment he wore. The three heavenly kings immediately gave chase. They tracked Qinmu's whereabouts using special techniques. King Yu, employing the Asura blood eyes, confirmed that Qinmu had already reached the edge of the forbidden zone known as the Celestial Thunder, though he had yet to cross it. King Lupanik asked anxiously, "Did anyone warn Qinmu about the danger of that region?" It turned out no one had. Without wasting another moment, they hurried after him. The forbidden land of celestial thunder was infamous for its peril. Even high-level practitioners could lose their lives within, let alone Qinmu, who was still young. The three heavenly kings recklessly charged in, but the lightning strikes wounded them despite their overwhelming strength. Meanwhile, Qinmu, still outside the thunder zone, watched the bolts flashing wildly. A chill ran through his heart, but fortunately, with the green heaven eyes, he managed to avoid the dangers in time. From a distance, he caught sight of three figures trapped in the storm, but before he could be certain of their identities, his body had already plummeted through the skies. Below, the magnificent scenery of the Eternal Peace Empire stretched wide before him. With great difficulty, the three heavenly kings finally managed to escape the hazardous zone after exhausting all their strength. Yet all they could see was Qinmu's figure, growing smaller and farther away in the distance. They let out a sigh of relief, as though a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Heavenly King Lu lamented, "Had I known this mission would turn out to be this troublesome, I would never have accepted it." He wiped the soot from his face, complaining about how unpredictable the new sect leader was. The other two heavenly kings nodded in agreement, acknowledging Qinmu's extraordinary talent despite his youth. Now that matters concerning Qinmu were settled, they agreed to shift their focus toward a deeper investigation into Heavenly King Qian. Yet their worries did not end there. The greatest threat was not only those bold enough to challenge their sect, but also the possibility of the teleportation banner's location being exposed. Should that secret spread, their sacred land would be easily discovered by outsiders. One of them pointed downward, realizing they were directly above Mount Prefecture. Heavenly King Yu was taken aback by the revelation, then reminded the others that the region was already in turmoil, even involving the imperial family. With Qinmu landing there, he feared the situation would only grow worse. Meanwhile, the land of the Holy Arrival Mountain continued to drift across the skies, hidden among masses of thunderclouds. From a place called the Viewing Abyss, the mountain's inhabitants could actually see the lands below. Yet, occupied with their own matters, they neglected to check, and thus failed to notice that Qinmu had already escaped. Heavenly King Lu could only hope that Qinmu did not fall directly into the battlefield raging below. At last, Qinmu touched the ground, aided by Hulinger's demonic wind power. Though safe, his body felt utterly exhausted, most of his vital energy already drained. For a brief moment, memories of the past returned, his days at the Imperial Academy. Although he had once been appointed an official, he had attended only a single lecture before leaving that place behind. Surveying his surroundings, Qinmu then asked Hu Linger to bring out the imperial map. He compared the topography before his eyes with the drawings on the map, and finally concluded that they were within the territory of Mount Prefecture, though still quite far from the capital city. As he pondered this, a flying ship suddenly passed through the skies. Qinmu immediately activated the heavenly thiep step technique, dashing after the vessel at incredible speed. The ship turned out to be a merchant craft that also carried passengers, one of the few still operating amidst the chaos. Qinmu accelerated, running through the air as if upon solid ground. In the blink of an eye, he landed upon the ship's deck. Yet the moment his feet touched the floor, dozens of flying swords pointed straight at him from all directions. Calmly, Qinmu raised both hands and declared that he had no hostile intent, only wishing to board the ship as a passenger. The travelers eyed him warily. Most of them were merchants, accompanied by divine art practitioners hired as escorts, along with a few officials. It was the escorts who now aimed their blades at him. One man, tattooed and bare-chested, stepped forward and demanded to know where Qinmu was headed. Qinmu answered steadily that his destination was the imperial capital. The ship's helmsman nodded, confirming that this was indeed their course. However, he also stated that the fare was 100 great abundance coins. Hearing this, Qinmu was stunned. He complained about how exorbitant the price was, especially when compared to travel along the Tomb River, which cost only 10 abundance coins. The helmsman then explained, "Because of the war and the great risks we face, the fare has had to rise drastically. Each journey puts our very lives at stake." Qinmu finally nodded, understanding the reasoning. He paid the fare without objection, realizing that traveling by land would be far more exhausting and dangerous. As the ship continued its voyage, several merchants began to gossip. They mentioned that the forest prefecture had also risen in rebellion. An old man chimed in, explaining that the leader there had once been an empress from the Passion Farewell Palace, a palace famed for its great power and formidable military followers. Now, with that palace in revolt, the chaos had only deepened. Moreover, the palace was known as one of the great sects of women, its influence nearly rivaling that of the 3 principal Holy Lands. The turmoil did not end there. The Castle of 3 Marvels had also rebelled, which in turn led to the exile of Consort C to the Cold Palace due to his ties with the castle. One merchant asked in astonishment, "Why are so many sects rebelling at the same time?" Another replied, "It all began with rumors that the imperial preceptor had been gravely wounded after being attacked by 3 high-level experts. That injury made the court appear weakened. Some rumors even claimed that the imperial preceptor concealed the stench of his wounds with perfume. Many believed he was no longer at his peak." That story gained more credibility when the Dragon Rider sect dared to challenge the imperial preceptor and returned unharmed. It was taken as a clear sign that his strength had diminished. But their conversation soon fell silent. A sense of unease spread, for there were also several officials aboard the ship. The merchants feared that spies might be listening. Qinmu, who had been quietly listening, recalled a lecture he had once attended directly under the imperial preceptor. At that time, he had noticed the fragrance of perfumes and herbs masking the preceptor's body. Having grown accustomed to the sense of medicinal ingredients from his grandmother's shop, Qinmu immediately realized something. It was not the stench of festering wounds, but merely a blend of cosmetics and common herbs. From this, he deduced that the imperial preceptor's wounds had long since healed. All the rumors were part of a grand scheme, a strategy designed to make the rebels believe the court was vulnerable. Qinmu felt a chill of dread. He realized just how deep and dangerous the game of strategy being played behind the scenes truly was. Feigning weakness to lure rebellions into the open, then eradicating them all at once, that, Qinmu suspected, was the great strategy in motion. Yet, seeing the devastation that had unfolded over the past 3 months, he began to doubt whether the imperial preceptor's plan was truly sound, or perhaps far too reckless. What was even more alarming was that the internal chaos coincided with threats from outside, the power of the barbarian empire in the north and the ever-watchful nation of the Wolf Granary. Could it be that the imperial preceptor intends to seize the throne amid this chaos? Qinmu wondered. The thought weighed heavily on his mind. Yet soon after, doubt arose again. The imperial preceptor he knew did not seem like someone who would resort to such underhanded means to claim the title of emperor. Suddenly, the ship shook violently, prompting Qinmu to check their surroundings. His eyes widened. The vessel had entered a battlefield suspended in the skies. The heavens were filled with warships, sprawling battle clouds, mounted beasts, and spiritual weapons flying in all directions. Fortunately, the merchant ship they were on merely skirted the edge of the conflict. The helmsman swiftly swerved the craft, nearly capsizing it in his desperate attempt to avoid collision. Qinmu braced himself against the violent jolts. In the midst of the chaos, he spotted a golden-winged cavalry rushing toward them, surrounded by floating blades. "Don't attack! We're only merchants, not soldiers!" the helmsman cried out in panic, hoping to avoid a clash. Alas, the assailants paid no heed. Their swords tore through the ship's sails, causing its speed to drop drastically. Fear gripped all the passengers. This was no longer mere sect unrest, but a full-scale war between the rebel forces and the imperial army. The imperial troops were now stronger than ever, thanks to the reforms of the imperial preceptor. Each soldier was equipped with standardized spiritual weapons. Even though they were not high-level experts, the soldiers could coordinate, channeling energy into thousands of blades at once, and commanding them as a single entity. Such collective strength was enough to rival and even overwhelm ordinary sect practitioners. Qinmu, preparing to rely on his sword case, suddenly remembered the swords within had already been destroyed. With a heavy heart, he cast it aside. Instead, he drew a junior protective sword from his storage pouch. At once, he manipulated it using the waveform sword manifestation technique. In a flash, the enemy blades aimed at him were sliced clean in two, glittering in the air before falling helplessly. Qinmu's swordsmanship was sharp and deadly, yet just as the battle began to ease, one of the enemy soldiers' sacks burst open. From within, countless golden insects poured forth, swarming toward the ship. Panic erupted. The passengers screamed in terror. These were no ordinary creatures. They were the insect legions of the Castle of Three Marvels, infamous as one of the deadliest formations of war. A fat merchant with some cultivation tried to resist. Within seconds, his body was engulfed by the swarm. His frame shriveled like a deflating balloon, leaving only a thin husk. From his eyes, nose, and mouth, the loathsome insects crawled out. Qinmu stared in horror. In that moment, he truly understood. This was no ordinary war, but a merciless struggle of life and death. The ship descended into chaos. Though the helmsman possessed immense strength, he could not protect all the passengers while steering the vessel at the same time. The Castle of Three Marvels was known for three things: venomous insect legions, mastery of medicine, and beautiful women. Even Empress C was famed as one of the great beauties of the castle. After the castle came under imperial authority, they were ordered to form a specialized unit devoted to insect control. It was this very force that now raged across the battlefield. Unwittingly, the merchant ship carrying Qinmu had drifted into the combat zone, making them the direct target of the Golden Swarm. Qinmu sprang into action, though he knew his junior protective sword alone could not handle the onslaught. Quickly, he unleashed his vital qi, manifesting thousands of fine blades shaped like crimson suns. It was the sunset sword skill of the Yu Yuan Academy. The countless blades of light shredded through the swarm, scattering the insects in all directions. At the same moment, his junior protective sword pierced through the chest of an enemy soldier, ending him instantly. The helmsman, witnessing Qinmu's skill, was struck with admiration. Handing control of the ship to his assistant, he leapt into the fray. From his palm, he produced a gourd filled with fire. From within burst forth a 9-headed phoenix. The fiery bird let out a thunderous cry, spewing devastating flames that incinerated the insect horde before they could close in on the ship. The scene left everyone astonished. Even Qinmu inwardly admitted the helmsman's skill was comparable to one of the minor generals he had once heard of, Qin Veiyu. The divine fire art he unleashed, coupled with his cultivation level, revealed that the man was a practitioner of the 7-star realm. Yet the enemy's assault had not ended. From within the swarm of insects emerged a female general, leading the troops of the Castle of Three Wonders. With a mere flick of her fingertip, she directed another wave of attacks. The helmsman only grinned. He recalled the fire phoenix back into his gourd, then inverted the vessel. Instantly, the entire swarm of insects was sucked inside, and with a rapid sequence of mudras, he sealed them until they burned to ashes. Qinmu, witnessing the scene, was stunned. He realized how profound the helmsman's mastery over runes and mudras truly was. The female general glared sharply, then recognized the man. "Then Yunxiu, the fire bandit," she declared. At once, the merchants and officials aboard the ship turned pale. Some even raised their swords in preparation. But Ven Yunxiu responded nonchalantly, "I am merely trying to make a living." The female general sneered, recalling his past as a Dao sect disciple who had been expelled for his dark ambitions, only to end up as a bandit preying on merchants. She expressed her surprise at seeing him now serving as a helmsman of a vessel. With a light laugh, Ven Yunxiu replied, "In times of peace, banditry is profitable. But in times of war, being a helmsman proves far more useful." He then pleaded for the general to let the matter rest. Realizing the situation was chaotic and her opponent too formidable to engage at that moment, the female general chose to retreat with her insect army. Then Yunxiu breathed a sigh of relief, then ordered his assistant to resume steering the ship. Still, the merchants remained wary, some holding on to their suspicions. Then Yunxiu tried to reassure them, claiming he had long abandoned his old ways. He even said the vessel was now officially registered in the capital. One official retorted mockingly, pointing out that the ship had once been a pirate vessel known as the Cloud Chaser. Then Yunxiu did not deny it. Instead, he confirmed it with a relaxed smile. Yes, it was once a pirate ship, but now it has been renamed as the Cloud Chaser passenger ship. Upon seeing that one of the merchants had been killed during the insect attack, then Yunxiu showed remorse. He handed a pouch of money to the merchant's companion as compensation. Yet the tension was not fully gone. The passengers felt as though they had escaped one disaster, only to fall into the hands of a former bandit. With confidence, then Yunxiu bowed and declared that he had changed. He promised to bring every passenger safely to the capital. Still, fear was evident on their faces. To lighten the mood, then Yunxiu shifted the conversation by praising Qinmu's swordsmanship, guessing that he was from the Yuyuan family. Qinmu shook his head, introducing himself as a disciple of the Imperial Academy, and in turn praised Ven Yunxiu's vast knowledge. Then appeared pleased, feeling appreciated. He then lamented that too many people focused only on cultivation, neglecting knowledge, when in fact the roots of many Tao sect supreme arts lay in knowledge itself. Qinmu nodded in agreement. He himself knew that high-level arts, such as teleportation or the Tao sword, could only be mastered upon a strong foundation of knowledge. Ven Yunxiu then remarked that if Qinmu were to join a Tao sect, the masters there would surely admire him. Jokingly, he added that he had been expelled only because he was too talented at becoming a bandit. Qinmu smiled, then asked if it was true that Ven Yunxiu became a bandit after being cast out. With a light laugh, Ven replied that his teacher had foreseen his future and expelled him precisely so he could fulfill his destiny as a bandit. The conversation continued. Qinmu grew curious about Ven Yunxiu's algebraic skills. He answered that he had once been highly skilled, but after living the life of a bandit, he had long since returned all that knowledge to his teacher. Suddenly, chaos broke out again. A crewman shouted that the pill furnace had been sabotaged with insects by a woman from the Castle of Three Wonders. Ven Yunxiu erupted in fury, calling for any skilled smith to repair it. Moments later, several physicians rushed in with grim news. The pill furnace had exploded. Ven Yunxiu panicked and prepared to order all passengers to leap from the ship. But Qinmu stepped forward, offering his help. He declared that he possessed both forging skills and medical knowledge. Though hesitant, Ven Yunxiu finally allowed him to try. Together, they rushed down into the ship's blazing lower deck. Without the pill furnace, the vessel began to slow, losing power, and gradually descended from the skies. Qinmu immediately examined the furnace and quickly grasped its structure. He explained that he could reforge it within the span of a single incense stick, then began working at once. Controlling two streams of vital qi, the vermilion bird and the black tortoise, he melted the damaged metal and reshaped it. Everyone watching was astonished by both his speed and precision. Meanwhile, Fen Yunxiu emerged from the hold and summoned the nine-headed phoenix to keep the ship afloat. Yet the burden was too great, and his strength nearly ran dry. Suddenly, two bronze beasts at the stern spewed forth blazing fire, propelling the ship forward at incredible speed. Fen Yunxiu was shocked, then awestruck at the drastic surge in velocity. Not long after, Qinmu emerged from the ship's hold. Fen Yunxiu immediately questioned him about the new furnace. Qinmu answered simply that he had merely reforged it based on his own understanding. Moments later, the vessel pierced the sound barrier, shooting forth like an arrow loosed from its bow. Fen Yunxiu was both amazed and delighted, imagining how none could ever catch him again should he choose to plunder. Hearing this, Qinmu recalled the warning of a Tao master who once said Fen Yunxiu's intentions were never upright. The little fox Hulinger could no longer hold back and quipped, asking why Fen did not use the ship's new speed to carry more passengers and earn honest profit instead of robbing others. Fen Yunxiu replied casually that robbery had now become far more efficient. With the ship's newfound speed, he could plunder several times in a single day, gaining far more than transporting passengers ever would. He even mocked Hullinger for not understanding business. Hullinger fell silent, unable to respond. But the extraordinary speed soon created a new problem. The vessel began to creak violently, as though unable to withstand the pressure of the air. Fen Yunxiu panicked, immediately ordering his crew to reinforce the ship's structure with protective runes. Qinmu too grew uneasy, fearing the vessel might shatter mid-air. Fortunately, it endured the entire journey. They even passed through several battlefields, yet the ship was so swift that the soldiers fighting below barely had time to notice, left only stunned as it vanished in the blink of an eye. Fen Yuanshao's astonishment grew. What once took 7 days of travel was now reduced to a single day, all thanks to Qinmu's reforged pill furnace. Still, there was a price to pay. The furnace, though powerful, consumed spirit stones and herbs at an alarming rate, making the ship's operating cost far higher. By the following morning, they finally reached the capital. Their spirit stones nearly depleted, the ship slowed and gradually descended into the mount yard. The guards on duty were initially alarmed at the sight of Fen Yuanshou. Some even prepared to arrest him. But Fen swiftly produced an official decree stamped with the imperial seal. The guards were astonished. It seemed impossible that a former bandit could walk free so openly, yet they could not refute an imperial document. Fen Yuanshou only laughed bitterly, remarking that this was the only imperial grace that had ever brought him close to tears. As Qinmu prepared to disembark, Fen Yuanshou attempted to lure him into joining as a bandit. He promised vast profits without the need for capital. Qinmu declined politely, upholding the honor of being an Imperial Academy disciple, unlike Fen Yuanshou, whose reputation had long been tainted. Hulunder also affirmed that her master was not a man of dark intent. At last, Fen Yuanshou relented, but instead offered Qinmu a gift, the Canon of Supreme Mysteries in Computation, a text he once stole from the Tao sect. Knowing Qinmu's deep interest in algebra, he passed it on. Qinmu eagerly accepted, entrusting the Canon to Hulunder for safekeeping. Fen Yuanshou explained that the Canon was once used to awaken the intelligence of Tao disciples before they studied the 14 Tao sword writings. He himself had only delved into 5 of the writings before being expelled. Curious, Qinmu asked about a certain technique he had heard of, a move that condensed vast movements into a single point. Fen Yuanshou was startled that Qinmu knew of it. He explained that the technique came from the very first writing, considered the foundation of the Tao sword. Its power would grow stronger with each subsequent writing. Legend said that anyone who mastered all 14 would reach the realm of a god. Yet until now, none within the Tao sect had ever achieved it. Hearing this, Qinmu's heart pounded. The thought of such power thrilled his blood. Even the first writing alone was enough to stir him, recalling how Daozi Lingswan once wielded that basic technique against him, discovering his weakness and wounding him, though Qinmu ultimately prevailed. His curiosity toward the 14 Tao sword writings only grew more intense. After bidding farewell, Qinmu made his way toward the Imperial Academy. Along the road, his thoughts lingered on Fen Yuanshou, such an enigmatic figure, fascinating yet doomed to end tragically as a bandit. He also pondered who would become Grand Chancellor after the Patriarch's retirement. In his view, Chancellor Bossen was the best choice, though he knew not all shared Bossen's progressive mind. To Qinmu, the founding of the Imperial Academy was vital if they were ever to surpass the Tao sect or the mighty Thunder Monastery. When he finally reached the gates of the Imperial Academy's mountain, he saw the Qilin dragon stationed as gatekeeper. Yet this time, the chain usually coiled around its neck was gone. Qinmu watched it several times with curiosity. The beast stood stiffly like a statue, but the veins along its neck pulsed. The moment it realized it was being observed, the Qilin dragon grew furious and scolded Qinmu. Qinmu was puzzled. The chain was gone. He asked why the dragon Qilin didn't simply leave. The Qilin dragon replied that he had nowhere else to go and felt comfortable there because he was always fed. Hulunder sneered, mocking a life spent only eating and drinking. Provoked, the Qilin dragon shot back with sarcasm, saying the little fox could never understand the ambition of a Qilin. As Qinmu prepared to continue his climb up the mountain, the Qilin dragon spoke in a weary voice. He felt abandoned. His young patriarch had retired, and now he was left alone guarding the gate, often humiliated by the bull and mocked by the fox. Hearing this, Qinmu stopped and stepped closer. He told the Qilin that they belonged to the same sect and that he himself was now the sect's leader. The Qilin remained suspicious, accusing Qinmu of having once crippled him. Qinmu defended himself, saying he had only retaliated after being defeated by the bull on the dragon's advice. The Qilin grumbled that he had been weakened. Qinmu tried to placate him by offering to reunite him with the bull so he could take his revenge. The Qilin did not believe him. Qinmu gave up and continued upward, but secretly the Qilin dragon began to follow. When Qinmu reached the Jade Cliff, he turned and realized the Qilin was still tailing him atop a cloud of flame. He asked why the beast kept following. The Qilin answered bluntly, "You crippled me, so you must feed me." Qinmu was confused. Hadn't the Qilin said he was already being fed daily? The Qilin explained that the patriarch used to feed him, but now no one cared. He was even often harassed by the bull, who accused him of deceiving feelings. Hearing the sad tale, Qinmu's heart softened a little. He promised to feed the Qilin and asked what the creature usually ate. The Qilin said he drank only from the Jade Dragon Lake and required a full bucket of red fire spirit pills each day. Qinmu and Hulinger were stunned. With their limited funds, that would only last half a month. Hulinger suggested they not keep the Qilin because the cost was too high. Upon hearing that, the Qilin hastily bargained. "Then half a bucket will do, or 1 liter. Qinmu finally compromised, agreeing to concoct the pills himself to save costs. But he insisted it would not be free. In return, the Qilin must give his saliva each day. At first, the Qilin was suspicious, then relieved when he learned Qinmu meant ordinary saliva, not some magical dragon essence. He agreed, though he still brought up the promise to beat the bull. Qinmu warned him not to be greedy. Hearing this, the Qilin went quiet and began to cling to Qinmu like a pet afraid of losing its master. Hulinger could only stare in amazement at the Qilin's huge form, towering far above Qinmu. 40 to 50 feet long and marked with natural runes, his appearance was truly majestic. It was no wonder his appetite was enormous. Finally, Qinmu led the Qilin to the Jade Dragon Lake so he could drink his fill. He muttered under his breath, "I hope this Qilin's saliva is valuable enough to cover his food costs. If not, all my wealth might be spent just feeding this one creature."